There are destinations in Europe that everyone knows. France, Italy, Spain. Names you see over and over again until they stop surprising you. But there's something curious. On a continent that seems to have been completely discovered, there are still places that hardly anyone mentions. Places that don't show up on the list, that don't flood Instagram, and yet can leave you much more impressed than the usual destinations. This is one of them. A country so small that many of us wouldn't have pointed it out on the map, but with landscapes that seem impossible. And today, we're going to visit 7 places that show why Montenegro is probably Europe's best-kept secret. From beaches that seem foreign to surprising landscapes you wouldn't expect here, some of them will surprise you. And there's one in particular that will definitely make you change your plans for your next trip. And yet, hardly anyone talks about it. Today, you're going to find out why. This is Montenegro. Montenegro is a place that makes you ask yourself something simple. How is it that hardly anyone is talking about this? For much of its modern history, it was part of the former Yugoslavia and is located in the Balkan region, an area of Europe known for its mix of cultures, wild landscapes, and a history as complex as it is fascinating. In our case, we arrived in Montenegro by land, crossing the border from Bosnia and Herzegovina by car. And as soon as we entered the country, we had the feeling that we were arriving at a special place. The mountains became more and more imposing. The roads began to wind through increasingly impressive landscapes, and the surroundings looked like something out of a movie. These epic landscapes we're seeing are the route through Montenegro, from the border with Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's this Piva Lake that we find along this scenic road. And now, we've arrived at the first of the 7 stops, Durmitor National Park. Just 50 kilometers after crossing the border with Bosnia and Herzegovina, we reach Durmitor National Park. Montenegro is a small country, so in just a few hours, you can go from the deepest canyons on the planet to a wonderful park or to medieval cities by the sea, which we'll see later on. Here, the landscape stops being simply impressive and starts to feel truly wild. Durmitor is located in the north of Montenegro, far from the Mediterranean coast that we'll see later. The climate is colder, and mountains dominate the horizon in every direction. It's a land of rocky peaks, deep forests, and open meadows where the landscape seems to stretch for miles. Part of this region is within a protected national park and is also included on the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Heritage List. Is it difficult to cross the land border between Bosnia and Montenegro? Honestly, no. It was very easy. We waited in line for a bit, showed our passport, and crossed without any problem. Just keep in mind that neither of these countries is part of the European Union. There are no big cities or constant traffic here, just mountain roads, small scattered villages, and nature that completely dominates the area. At many times, the landscape is more reminiscent of the Alps than the Mediterranean image we usually associate with Montenegro. The mountains rise abruptly from the valleys, forming sharp ridges and rock walls that change color depending on the light of the day. In spring and summer, many hillsides are covered with green meadows, where it is still common to see shepherds with flocks of sheep. In autumn, the forests change color, and in winter, much of the park is covered by snow. We continue our journey and head to the second stop on this tour, just a few kilometers away. And at some point along this road, one of the most impressive natural landscapes in all of Europe appears: the Tara Canyon. The Tara River runs through northern Montenegro, forming a gigantic gorge that, at some points, is over 1,000 meters deep. That makes it the deepest canyon in Europe and one of the deepest in the world. But beyond the numbers, what really makes an impact is seeing it with your own eyes. From above, the landscape is almost hard to take in. In the center of this landscape, a structure appears that seems to defy its scale: the Tara Canyon Bridge. An elegant concrete structure that crosses the canyon more than 170 meters above the river, connecting both sides of this enormous valley. When it was built in the late 1930s, it was one of the largest concrete arch bridges in Europe. And even today, almost a century later, it remains one of the most impressive engineering works in the entire region. But what really makes this place special is not just the bridge, but everything that surrounds it. From up here, the canyon opens up in all directions. Today, the bridge has also become one of the most visited spots in northern Montenegro. The Tara River appears as a very thin turquoise line, winding hundreds of meters below, while forests cover every corner of the surrounding mountains. How about an impromptu lunch in this place? The best views, without a doubt. Now we're heading to one of the most well-known places in Montenegro. We're about 185 kilometers away. Here we decided to stay for 3 nights to explore it calmly. And actually, this place will have its own special video on the channel. We've reached number 3. We're talking about Kotor. In the middle of that landscape of mountains that drop straight into the sea is Kotor, a small medieval city that for centuries was one of the most important ports in this part of the Adriatic. Its history is marked by many influences. Romans, Byzantines, Venetians, Ottomans, all left their mark on this region. But it was especially during the rule of the Republic of Venice, between the 15th and 18th centuries, that Kotor reached much of its prosperity. The walls, the palaces, and many of the churches we see today in the historic center come from that era. Because of its enormous historical and cultural value, the entire bay and the old city of Kotor were declared a World Heritage Site by United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And just walking for a few minutes through its streets is enough to understand why. Do you know why there are so many cats in Kotor? Because for centuries, cats were key to controlling plagues in the town of Kotor, The sailors used to bring them on their ships, and over time, they stayed in the city, where they are also protected and fed by the locals. The historic center of Kotor is a labyrinth of narrow streets, stone squares, and medieval buildings that seem to have been frozen in time. There are only small alleys that cross each other, stairs that lead up to the city walls, and squares where you always find a church, a cafe, or a small restaurant. One of the most important buildings in the city is the Cathedral of St. Tryphon. Built in the 12th century, it is one of the oldest Romanesque churches in the entire region and one of the historical symbols of Kotor. But probably what most defines the city's landscape are its walls, an impressive defensive system that climbs up the mountain behind the old town for several kilometers. They look impressive from below, but everyone says climbing to the top is truly spectacular. The walk to the San Giovanni Fortress is one of the most famous experiences in Kotor. There are more than 1,000 steps that climb up the mountainside, passing through ancient walls and small stone gates. It can be challenging, but for those who dare, the reward is absolutely worth it. From the top, you get one of the most spectacular views of the entire bay. The medieval old town looks small next to the water, surrounded by huge mountains that are reflected in the sea. But for those of us who don't feel up to making that hike, in recent years, another way to enjoy these views has also become available. You can see the bay from farther away, and Iradamaldo is a bit farther from the old town, but the Kotor cable car is also well worth it. This system connects the coast with the mountains in just a few minutes. During the ascent, the view of the bay opens up more and more, revealing the entire landscape of curves and channels that are part of this corner of the Adriatic. Honestly, the ride up is wonderful. It's really worth taking this trip if you're in Kotor. At the top, the view is simply breathtaking. From here, you can understand the true scale of the bay and why this place has been so strategic throughout history. Up here, they have restaurants, cafes, and lots of things to enjoy. We enjoyed a roller coaster. But Kotor isn't just enjoyed from land. One of the best ways to explore the bay is by going out on the water. The boat tours go to different spots in this huge system of natural channels. As the boat moves away from the port, the medieval city is left behind, and the bay slowly begins to open up. The mountains surround the water on all sides, creating a landscape that constantly changes as you move forward. I highly recommend this tour to you. They offer shared tours, or you can rent the boat privately with a captain. We chose the latter option since we went as a family and there were 4 of us. I'm leaving the QR code here on the screen so you can check the prices for your dates, and the link is also in the description. But if there's something I recommend doing in Kotor, it's this tour, because honestly, it's wonderful. The views you get are breathtaking. And here, while we're enjoying this amazing tour, we want to say that if you're liking the video, discovering a new place, or finding it helpful, please subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos, guides, and also give it a like and share it with friends who enjoy planning their own itineraries. As we were saying, this boat tour is one of the trips we really recommend doing. The tour goes through a large part of the bay, heads out to sea, and lets you see some of the most beautiful landscapes of this place from the water. Along the way, you pass by small coastal villages, old churches, and mountains that drop straight down to the sea. One of the most visited places during this tour is the small town of Perast. Here we arrive at the fourth place to see in Montenegro, a small stone village that seems frozen in time, Perast. The ancient maritime town, full of stone palaces that reflect the wealth this region once had, invites you to walk through it. For centuries, it was an important maritime center under the rule of the Republic of Venice, and many of the elegant houses and palaces you see by the sea belong to families of sailors and merchants. Today, Perast is a peaceful place, ideal for taking a leisurely stroll along its waterfront and enjoying the views of the bay. In the bay, we can see two islands. One of them is St. George Island, and the other is the island that has the small church, Our Lady of the Rocks, at its center. A small place, but full of history, in one of the most beautiful corners of the Bay of Kotor.
But full of beautiful corners, bay of them and the... Kotor. One of them is the island and the island of Kotor.
Nothing to envy anywhere else in Europe, right? But there's still more to surprise you.
Volvíamos a Kotor luego de este paseo hermoso. Como dijimos, nos estábamos quedando 3 noches en Kotor. El lugar elegido fue un alojamiento.
More from its host. We paid 100 euros per night for each apartment in July. No breakfast, but with a place to park, which is very important in this city in summer. The advice in summer is to leave your car parked and always get around on foot. Why do more to surprise you? It can take a lot of minutes, because the traffic gets really jammed. There are a lot of people in a small city. I'll leave the link to the accommodation in the description, because honestly, it's really worth it. And here's the QR code in case you want to book it. As you can see, accommodation prices aren't as high as they can be in other parts of Europe, even during peak season. Kotor deserves much more than just a quick visit. That's why we decided to stay a few days, so we could go on a boat trip and enjoy some beaches. It's a very beautiful city for a vacation.
Kotor deserves more than just a quick visit. That's why we decided to stay so we could go on a boat trip.
Let's visit the 5th spot in Montenegro. After leisurely exploring the Bay of Kotor, the trip continued to another of the most well-known destinations on the Montenegrin coast, Budva. Now it was time to visit Budva. We spent 2 more nights in this city, and there will also be a special video about it. Located about 25 kilometers from Kotor, this city is considered one of the most important tourist centers in the country. What's interesting about Budva is it blends 2 very different worlds. On one hand, there's the modern city, full of hotels, restaurants, bars, and a pretty lively nightlife during the summer months. And on the other hand, there's its historic center, perfectly blended together. The Staribar, or Old Town, a small peninsula surrounded by stone walls that reach into the Adriatic Sea, also invites you to walk through it. The history of Budva is surprisingly ancient. It is believed that the first settlements in this area date back more than 2,500 years, making it one of the oldest inhabited places on the entire Adriatic coast. I said earlier, there's a place you'd want to pick for your vacation once you saw it, right? What do you think now? Throughout the centuries, the city passed through the hands of Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, and Venetians. Each one left their mark on the architecture and the character of the city. Walking through the historic center today feels like navigating a stone street maze. The walls completely surround the old city, and within them, small squares, ancient churches, restaurants, and terraces appear, filling with people as evening falls. A famous spot is the Church of Santa Maria in Punta, located by the sea. And very close by is also the Church of San Juan, whose bell tower has become one of the symbols of Budva's skyline. But Budva is not just about history. It is also one of the most popular beach destinations in Montenegro. On both sides of the city, there are several clear water beaches that attract thousands of visitors every summer.
The church of one of the city's important beaches.
One of the most famous is Mogren Beach, located just a few minutes' walk from the old town and surrounded by cliffs that create a truly spectacular landscape.
Santa Important Beaches. Thank you for watching the video.
From certain points along the promenade, you can also see some of the most photographed places in the area. The small island of Sveti Stefan.
Thank you for the video.
An ancient fortified village built on a small rocky island that now serves as an exclusive hotel. With its red rooftops and the turquoise water surrounding it, it has become one of the most iconic images of Montenegro. Budva at night has a very different vibe from Kotor Operast. It's livelier, more touristy, and much more active during the summer. But that's precisely why it shows another side of the country, a more Mediterranean Montenegro, more about the beach, and with a completely different energy from the mountains in the north. Thank you for watching the
Hotel en primera línea de playa, muy lindo y en el casco histórico. Pagamos 180 euros por la habitación doble por noche con desayuno en el mes de julio.
After exploring Montenegro's coast and famous medieval cities, there's another place highlighting a different part of the country's history. Let's go to the sixth place. Just a few kilometers from the sea is Staribar. Unlike Kotor or Budva, which are still lively cities full of tourists, Staribar is now a city in ruins. It's a huge complex of walls, stone streets, churches, and old buildings that stretch along the mountainside. For centuries, this was the true center of the region. Its location, a bit away from the coast, made it easier to protect the city from attacks coming from the sea. Many civilizations passed through here, Romans, Byzantines, Venetians, and Ottomans. Each of them left their mark on the architecture and the history of the place. However, much of the city was abandoned after a strong earthquake at the end of the 19th century. Over time, the inhabitants moved toward the coast, where the modern city of Bar grew. And so, little by little, Staribar became frozen in time. After traveling along the coast, the medieval bays, and the northern mountains, the journey through Montenegro reaches its final stop. Place number 7, the country's capital, Podgorica. Unlike cities like Kotor or Budva, Podgorica is not a particularly touristy destination. A large part of the city was destroyed during World War II and later rebuilt, so its appearance is much more modern. Many people say it's the ugliest capital in Europe. However, here you can find one of the most important religious buildings in Montenegro, the Cathedral of the Resurrection of Christ. And just to see it, it's worth making a stop. A relatively recent Orthodox church, inaugurated in 2013, which has become one of the main symbols of the city. From the outside, it already impresses with its size and its architecture, inspired by the traditional style of Orthodox churches in the Balkans. But it's inside where you can truly appreciate the magnitude of the place. The walls are completely covered with frescoes and religious paintings that depict biblical scenes, saints, and important moments from the Orthodox tradition. Every corner seems to have a different detail. Light streaming through the windows highlights the golden icons and creates a silent, solemn atmosphere that sharply contrasts with the busy, modern city outside. It's a place that truly reflects an important part of Montenegro's cultural and religious identity, and it's also a great way to end this journey through the country. Because Montenegro may be small in size, but in just a few kilometers, it concentrates an enormous variety of landscapes and history: wild mountains, deep canyons, medieval cities by the sea, peaceful villages by the bay, and places like this that show another side of the country. A corner of Europe that still surprises many travelers and deserves to be more recognized by those seeking unique destinations. Montenegro is one of those places that, once you visit, makes you wonder something very special. How is it possible that people don't talk about it more? If you liked it, I'm sure you'll like this city too.